Okay. Tim, can you tell us about the first time you found a crop circle on your land?
Yeah, the first time was in 1990, and it was in a field approximately sort of half a mile from where we're standing. And I was driving up the hill. In fact, we were going off to the Royal Agricultural Show, which is on this week. So it's exactly the anniversary, 1990. And looked down as we were driving up in the minibus and saw a shape. I mean, obviously we didn't know what it was or anything, and so didn't really think too much of it, and carried on to the show. Was up there all day. By the time we got back in the evening, there were loads of cars just sort of parked on the side of the road, and we thought, hello, something's happening, and we got in touch with a chap called Colin Andrews, who was then working for Andover County Council. He's a clerk, and he was interested in, he had put a sort of note round through our National Farmers Union magazine saying if anyone, finds anything on their land, please contact him. So, we did, and he came over, and, within a week the world's press had been, and it wasn't a great newsworthy summer that summer, and so the press really went with this crop circle, and before we know it, we were just inundated with thousands of visitors.
And what were your impressions on first seeing a crop circle?
Well, because nothing like that had ever appeared before, I don't know really. It was just, it was quite bizarre. Up until that time, really anything had just been a sort of simple circle, and no one really taken too much notice of them. But this was a big pictogram, as they later became known as, and it was quite weird walking down into it and just seeing how big it was, and how complicated. Obviously, compared to modern times, not that complicated, but at the time, it was quite a phenomenon.
Yeah, and did anyone take credit for that formation?
No.
Nobody.
And in the 120 or so we've had since then on this farm, no one seems to have taken credit for them. So there doesn't seem to who if they are hoaxed, the hoaxers don't get any publicity.
So no hoaxer has ever taken credit for a formation on your land specifically, is what you're saying?
And unless they've come onto the land with a film crew who are wanting to do an experiment, something like that. No.
So when did you first hear about hoaxing in general and that they're out there?
Well, 99.9% of the population think they're all hoaxed anyway. So. To start with, that's everybody's impression. So, we thought that, well, someone's doing it, but whoever is doing it, they're extremely clever, and over the years have got very, very more intricate with their designs, and up to this current year where we're sort of seeing sort of hieroglyphics or so whatever they are in some of the circles.
Yeah. Do you harvest the crop that's been affected? Or do you leave it?
No, we harvest what we can. A lot of my neighbours now, they're cutting them out as soon as they arrive, so they'll go with their mower and destroy the circle, plus any other standing wheat, barley, oilseed rape, whatever the crop happens to be. But I leave mine more because there is a lot of standing wheat crop within the formation, and it is salvageable, so I'd sooner cut it and harvest it rather than just cut it out.
Yeah. And do you how do the farmers in general in this region react to it? You just kind of mentioned that they're getting more and more belligerent.
I'll have to watch my language with that question, but cheesed off would be very cheesed off, most farmers, and as I say, most of them do cut them out as soon as they get them. I add a rod to my own back by leaving them, because obviously then that attracts people to look at them. So it's a sort of bit of a catch-22. I either destroy them and we don't get the visitors, and local businesses would be hugely affected every summer if I did that, because there's quite a few industries grown up from this.
So you do think that people have a lot to lose if the circles were to stop forming?
Well, local pubs, local bed and breakfasts, yes. I think it has given the economy a bit of a boost each year. Admittedly, numbers are way down on what they used to be, because you know, the majority of people been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. It's only really the enthusiasts that come back year after year. So you see the same sort of people coming back each year. Yeah.
So it's in the. Do you think perhaps the hoaxers are motivated by the possibility of financial gain to continue this? Could there be a kickback system going on here between you know, local proprietors and the hoaxers?
I don't know. I wouldn't have thought that you know, that the local pub would, you know, pay people to go and do it, because they occur, you know, everywhere. I mean, a lot more occur around here than anywhere else, but they do occur everywhere. And you know, there's people with vested interests. You know, the people who produce the calendar obviously need at least 12 a year to get a calendar. But you know, these they've been going on for, you know, 20 years now, and you know, I think that someone must be paying these people to do it, because, you know, why keep doing it? You know, they don't have any recognition, they don't get any publicity from it. So, you know, maybe there's an eccentric millionaire out there paying these people to do it and get more extravagant patterns year on year.
Could that be a Lady Rothschild type character?
I wouldn't have thought so, knowing her reaction to when they get one on their farm next door to us. So I wouldn't have thought so, no.
Going back to the crop itself, do you notice any difference in the yield or the quality of it? Is it any different in the circles compared to outside?
No, I mean, none whatsoever, you know, from an agricultural point of view, but from a scientific point of view, I know in the past they've taken plant tissue away to be sampled, and they found that the molecular structure of the plant has changed where they've been in the circle, and after a matter of weeks they've returned to normal, suggesting that, you know, there's something's taken place. We've had scientists come with Geiger counters and voltmeters, and they all get readings from within the formations and nothing outside. And, you know, there has been quite a few weird things that have happened. In that first year in 1990, I did a programme for the BBC. It was their news round programme. It was, you know, for kids that it comes on about 5 p.m. And they sent one of their presenters down with 2 seasoned cameramen and sound man. And we got our radio mics on, and they worked absolutely fine outside the formation. And then we went inside and they didn't work, stepped outside, they did, went back inside, they didn't. So in the end, they had to use the handheld microphone that attaches direct to the camera. And, you know, this cameraman and sound man, they said they'd never experienced anything quite like that.
And have you experienced any kind of mechanical failures with your machinery?
No, but, you know, again, we had lots of stories of people visiting that formation in 1990 who said their watches stopped, their cameras didn't work. Independent television came down and did a farming programme. You know, they were filming all around the farm one day, and, you know, they did lots of shots of the crop circles. And when they got back to their studios, there was nothing on the film at all, just a bright white light. So, but, you know, you can put that down to the camera not working or something like that. But they're all, you know, things that I've witnessed and seen, heard about.
Let's talk about Milk Hill 2001.
Yeah.
That beast that came down. What was your impression of that?
Well, that was probably one of the, well, it was the biggest thing I'd seen up until that time, and just the amount of individual circles that it made up was, I mean, it was phenomenal. On undulating ground, it appeared on a wet night, and, you know, you get that very fine drizzle up on top of the hill, and that low cloud just sits down on it, and so visibility would have been, you know, very difficult. And I went up there while it was still sort of pristine, you know, before anyone had walked into it, and there was no evidence of any footprints, which there would have been because there was mud on my shoes. So yeah, so I mean, you know, you do get the ones that can't be explained. I mean, I've never understood how anything as big as that can be made in such a short time, to be as precise and exact as what they are. When I give my talks, I always use the example. I allowed Mitsubishi to do an advert in one of the fields, and there were a couple of hoaxers who came to make a basic shape of a Mitsubishi space wagon, so, you know, not a complicated design. and yet that took them 12 hours of daylight to complete that task. And it was on no way on a scale compared to, you know, some of these formations. And they struggled to finish it in that time as well. So, you know, it shows that these things can't be done in a hurry, but they are.
Well, I've got that leads me to the next question. In your opinion, is there something real here? Is there something worth investigating?
Well, you know, there's what we call genuine formations and what we call badly hoaxed ones. And, you know, a genuine one could be hoaxed, but extremely well hoaxed. And, you know, when you speak to practical people, surveyors and people like that, you know, they say there's no way that, you know, something like that on that scale could be done in just a few hours of darkness. You know, at night round here you can hear a pin drop and you never hear anything, never see anything. No lights are used, no sound, they don't talk. So, you know, how can you coordinate something unless it's just one person doing it? You know, if you had 3 or 4 out there, how are they going to get everything precise, you know, on the bit they're doing, to be exactly precise with, you know, what the other are doing?
Yeah.
So,
has the military ever contacted you about the circles on your land, or the MOD?
no, in the early days, you know, for the first 3 or 4 years, they would always come over, you know, pretty soon after a formation had appeared. They were always hovering about the day after and taking pictures and stuff, yeah, but no direct contact, no.
And then I've got here, this is...
Hold on a second.
That's brilliant. Very good.
Charlie, half an inch this.
It's Tom.
You guys are doing awesome.
Just tell me when.
It's very difficult being sensible for as long as this.
Charlie, I got a backup question. I mean, a question to follow up. If you remember later, it's just that has Tim's opinion or viewpoint changed over
Yeah,
time?
good
or
one.
is it-
Oh, that's a trick. I can't. That's far too complicated.
I'll ask you a similar one, not quite as poignant.
It
So
looks
just
beautiful right now.
just tell me when, guys.
I'll just say no. That'd be the shortest answer. Right, off we go.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, Charlie.
Okay. So, Tim, I've got here what's known as an expulsion cavity or a blown node. Have you ever seen one of these unrelated to a crop circle?
No, I've certainly never heard of those words before. Sounded almost medical. No, I mean, as I said before, you know, people have taken plant samples away and test them for all sorts, and the nodes are one thing that you know, they say have exploded and stuff like that. And on this, the year, you know, the year of the bit where the seed is, they've some have come back with a sort of microwave effect where they've gone black and they, you know, from the inside out. But again, going back to sort of what I call a genuine formation, you find that none of the stalks are actually broken. So if no one actually went into that formation and walked around it and had a look, they would actually start growing back up towards the light. So they've had some form of downward pressure, but not enough to break the crop.
And let me just ask you, do you feel that over the years since the first pictoglyph that there's been an evolution in design in the crop circles? Have they progressed, do you think?
Last 5 or 6 years, there seems to be a sort of a general pattern for that year. But then, you know, you'll get a year that there isn't, you know, so maybe they're trying to sort of throw you off the scent. But, you know, whatever formation does appear, on the websites, they've always found a picture of, you know, ancient Aztec artwork or, you know, astrological symbols. Someone seems to be able to find a source for the pattern. You know, I don't think there's been a pattern yet that people haven't been able to correlate back to something back in time.
Yeah. And as a farmer, is there any means of recourse when your land gets, let's call it vandalized?
Yeah.
Do you have insurance? How does that get covered?
No. I tried insurance in that first year, but you know that of course they won't insure, like they won't insure against you know, various things, sort of act of gods or whatever they call it. But no, but I mean, on a practical point of view, it does cause a lot of hassle and extra work because the stuff you can't pick up with the harvester. You've got a lot of long straw left on the floor. You then have to try and incorporate that into the soil, and normally your cultivation equipment gets blocked up. And when you plant your new seed, there's always a lot of trash left on the surface where these crop circles are. And any trash on the surface will attract slugs, and the slugs come along and they eat the new shoots of the new crop. So, you know, it's quite common year on year to see fields where they had a crop circle last year to have a bit of a thinning area where they are because of that. So, you know, practical implications, you know, it's a headache, yeah.
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 So you're saying you get shadowing effects from the
Yes,
season?
but not for any sort of weird way, because of, you know, there's trash on the surface that attracts the slugs, and the slugs eat the new shoots.
Yeah.
And not how other people sometimes wish that it occurs.
Right. I mean, do the police ever attempt to help you catching hoaxes? Because your fields have been hit a few times this season.
Not really, no. I mean, they're very thin on the ground. They got far more better things to do with their time. At least I hope they have than running around fields trying to catch people. I mean, there's enough people that go up on the hills every night hoping to see something, and nothing ever seems to happen, or, you know, no one's ever been caught. So, but no, I mean, if I caught somebody, yes, I'd call the police. Yes.
You would?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you press charges?
Well, it's criminal damage. It's trespass.
Yeah.
You know, they could come along and ask.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, farmers can be approached. You know, we're all here to hopefully make a living, and if they came along with a sensible proposition, then, you know, by all means.
Yeah.
But you know, to just do it, and because they know I'm not going to destroy them, I attract probably more than my fair share.
Yeah. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the Led Zeppelin album cover. How did that come about?
Well, it happened before, you know, the first I knew about it was it appeared on an album cover. Obviously, all their album covers have a Zeppelin or the shadow of a Zeppelin on them, and when I saw it, I thought, oh, cheeky monkeys. Again, I've improved my language, and I got in touch with their promo company and said, you do realise I've got copyright on that picture? Went a bit silent on the end of the phone, and they said, well, we'll have to get back to you. So about 3 days later, they rang up and said, no one has copyright on a picture that's taken above a certain height. So I said, okay, well, you know, it is my field though and everything. And so they did send me quite a bit of stuff, including a signed cover, which is quite good, and a full-size poster. But yeah, well, it's you know, it's there in the history now, isn't it? It's there for everybody to see, and it's very familiar with either people who remember seeing it or have bought the Led Zeppelin cover.
Must be a bit of a thrill though, to be on the front of a.
Well, it's nice to nice to see it. Yes, yeah, absolutely, especially being Led Zeppelin as well, who are one of my favourites. Yeah.
Excellent.
Do you have an estimate on how much money a crop circle costs crops?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and whether my opinion's changed as well, isn't it?
I suppose, yeah. Okay.
Drop those two in there.
So if a crop circle comes down on your land,
Yeah.
What's the cost of the crop that's actually been damaged to you? Let's say for a Milk Hill 2001.
Right, well, something like that. I mean, that was in an 11-acre paddock, and it took up most of the field. So just doing some rough calculations, if we were going to get 4 tonnes to the acre, let's say, so that's 44 tonnes, and back in 2000, I think the price was about £100 a tonne. So, you know, you're talking, what, £4,500 worth of grain, but then, you know, some of it was salvageable, so say, you know, two grand, and then you've got the following problems, you know, as I explained earlier, about the following cultivations for the next crop. So, you know, you think I've had 120 over the last 20 years, so, you know, you're talking about a considerable area, and I've never actually financially tried to work it out, but yeah, it'd be running well into the tens of thousands by now, probably.
So it's actually a sizable amount.
Well, it is, you know, over that length of time, yeah.
Okay.
I got one more, just from a farmer's perspective about rape and about the crop itself.
Okay. rape?
Yeah, I mean, how difficult?
Yeah.
I mean, it gets all tangled when you try and
That's a
walk.
good point. So just one final question. When these circles come down in rape, it's a particularly tough crop. Do you think that makes it harder to lay them down?
Well, I can't believe people want to walk through the stuff for a start. And they always seem to do it when the crop's flowering, so you get absolutely covered in that yellow flower because the stuff that comes off the petals, you know, you get smothered in it. Very difficult to walk through, very difficult to lay down, it's very brittle. But again, you know, going back to the sort of, you know, genuine circle, somehow it's laid without actually breaking it. And with rape, you know, that's extremely hard because, again, the analogy I always give when I'm giving a talk is if you try and bend a piece of copper pipe, it just crimps, doesn't it? But if you heat it and then bend a pipe, you know, you can get the bend on it. And so, you know, that's the sort of example I give with rape, you know, so you can't just bend rape without crimping it unless, you know, you can do it in a way that it doesn't. So very difficult crop to be messing about in.
Yeah. So and this season began with 4 or 5 coming down in rape.
Well, more than ever in rape, wasn't it? I think there's about 10 in the end, wasn't there, in all seed rape? Yeah. So I mean, normally you just get 1 or 2 in rape just to kick the season off, and then they come into the barley because that's the next crop that's more mature, and then finally into the wheat, and they can occur right up until literally the day before you cut it. So you know, we've still got quite a way to go yet.
So the season we have at least another month and a half left.
Unfortunately, so yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Wait, Chad, I got one last one, dude. Just an overall.
All right.
Do you feel honored? Do you feel dishonored that so much happens to your field? I mean, your fields get hit more than anyone else's that we see. Do you take that as a?
Well, I mean, I've sort of answered that because, you know, I don't destroy them, do I? So they're probably more encouraged to do their artwork here because they know they won't get cut out.
Well, we feel the same way.
So I think that's it. Any?
You sure that's it? I mean, it's not just so quick.
No.
I don't have anything, but just make sure you have everything.
I think we covered most of it.
Do you want to come do your bit?
Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. I suppose I could ask you, you know, a bit of a silly question. I mean, if
You have to wait though.
Yeah, just hold off on that. Charlie, come this way, bro.
okay. Sorry, I'm off my mark here.
You've just been forced away by some imaginary force.
Who else went out? I'll tell you what.
Okay. So we've got blown nose, MOD. I mean, cover the industry.
We're clear.
Okay. Tim, it seems to me that you're not convinced entirely that some of these massive ones are made by hoaxes. If it's not hoaxes, who could it be?
I don't know. That's for you to find out, I think.
That's a good point.
That's what you've come here to discover. I'm longing to know the outcome of what you'll find. But no, I mean, as I said, some of them are just so big and so perfect. And, you know, from a practical point of view, and, you know, we are sort of practical people, farmers, and we got no idea how some of these enormous ones do come. You know, I think if they do occur, naturally, whatever that might be, they occur very quickly. Otherwise, more people would see them being formed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Have you ever found an incomplete formation on your land? Or heard of one?
Well, not incomplete, but we've had formations being added onto, which has occurred in the last couple of years. We had one up in Southfield, I think it's called on the website, but the actual name of the field is Wilcott Brow, and that was added onto last year. And the one under the White Horse this year was added onto twice. So, you know, which would suggest that that's, you know, definitely people, you know, messing about. and you know, I don't know why, but people get kicks out of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious just a bit. Question I have is does insurance cover? You already answered this in a way,
Yeah.
but if the first part would be, does farming insurance cover vandalism at all? And then if you said they didn't pay for this, is that because they don't think they can't prove it's vandalism because there's no vandals? Or
Well, yes, I think if you caught the vandals, then possibly, you know, you would try and sue them, and their insurance, if they were insured, would have to pay for it. But I mean, you know, if my cattle get out and ruin a neighbour's crop, then you were insured for that. So our animals are insured if they do damage. You know, if we're moving them on the road and they dent a car, then we're covered for that sort of thing. But you know, when it comes to this, you know, you can get cover for anything, but you know, the premium would probably be astronomical.
This is just conjecture, but Tim, you seem to be a pillar of this community. I mean, everyone that we know talks very highly of you.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Actually,
my
they do.
question would be, if there's hoaxers hanging out the barge, and people, I mean, there's teams, so there's definitely people know each other. And it's disrespectful if it is locals who are trashing your fields, right? I mean, wouldn't you find out through the grapevine that it's some neighborhood kid or something?
Well, you know, it's quite possible that these hoaxers have moved to the area. That's for sure. I mean, you know, we know there are a couple of known ones who live not too far from here. But as I said before, you know, if they want to come and do something, then, you know, why not approach the farmer and, you know, come up with some money? Because if this is all these guys do, then someone's paying them to survive. I can't believe they're just on the dole and doing it for their own pleasure.
Yeah. And would any of these you're talking about local hoaxes? Matt Williams? Does he?
Well, that's a name that's you know, rang a bell, and that's a person who's been prosecuted successfully once. But I think it was £100 fine and £150 costs.
Yeah.
So that's hardly going to deter
Yeah. Why do you think
people.
that is? Why?
Well, that's probably, you know, in the law books, you know, I think they have a sort of list of what something is worth, and that's probably all it was in terms of actual crop that was damaged. I shouldn't think it was any more than that.
Yeah. I guess I have to ask this. Have you ever heard of anyone being cured of any ailments from being in a circle?
No.
Some with a pinched nerve, or
No, we've had people who felt nauseous going into circles, especially that first year, because obviously when we had so many people that year that we had to control it, and I employed a few people from the village in rotation to just take turns being up by the entrance and telling people to extinguish cigarettes and which tractor line to walk up.
Two sandbags next time. Alex, you got a foot on that?
not really. I can't. If it happens, it happens.
yeah. So we'll just go.
Yeah, well, I'll just. So yeah, I employ people on a rotational basis in the village, you know, to just really control the people, and so they knew how to get into the formation to make sure they weren't smoking. And I obviously took my turn, and you know, you spoke to people who were going in there, and you know, that we had the cameras not working, the watches stopping, people feel nauseous when they went in there. We had one woman who came back about 3 or 4 times because she said she was physically repelled from going in there. So after the 4th time, I didn't charge her £1 to go in, but you know, that's the sort of charitable bloke I am. Yeah. But no, I mean, it was a very amazing sort of time, really, having so many people come and look at this thing.
Yeah.
But it was that was my one profitable crop circle year. That was the best variable profit I've had on a quarter of an acre of wheat
Excellent.
ever.
And you do put, I think this is an excellent idea, you put honesty boxes in. How honest
Yeah.
are people?
Well, I mean, this is about the first year I've done an honesty box. In the past, when we haven't had too many on the farm, you know, we've tried to, you know, get people to go up and sit there for the day, but it's a pretty tiresome job. And then for a few years I didn't do anything, but Michael Glickman encouraged me to, you know, put an honesty box up there. I mean, you know, it's okay, but it's a way of people getting rid of all their 1s, 2p's and 5p's when I go up and collect it. You don't get too many notes stuffed in there, although I did have a 10 rand note last night, South African, which equates to about 80p, I suppose.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you know, it's better than nothing. It won't go to repay, you know, what I've lost on that particular bit of wheat, but it's, as I say, better than nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
How much space do your fields cover?
Well, I mean, the farm down here, we have 1,500 acres, of which 1,000 are cropped. So, you know, we've got quite an area, quite a lot of fields. And you know, it's difficult to police all of it.
Yeah, I imagine. Good.
All right, well
that was
done.
brilliant. Thank you, sir.
That's all right.
Truly appreciate it.